think I heard it in my left ear. I didn't hear it in my right ear. So
Industrial deafness.
industrial.
That's because of all of the time you spent working in factories.
Yeah. All 4 weeks of it until I realised I hated it. No offense,
Oh.
Dad. No, he knows I hated it. It's all good. He hated me
Yeah.
working there too.
You've got to be honest. If you don't work well together, you got to be honest. And I think, Gareth, this is the end of the road.
What, you breaking up with me?
Wait, sorry. Say that again. You're breaking up.
Go fuck yourself. I think at the end of this conversation we might be broken up because it's debate time, Joel.
It's debate time.
It's debate time. And no, shut up. I'm at the moment. I think I'm 2-1 up, 2-1.5.
I'm not counting points.
I have been counting points, and I'm pretty sure I'm 2-1 up.
I forget how to count, so I'm not going to count points.
Typical.
For me,
northerner.
it's the taking part that matters. It's being involved, and it's ultimately just spending time with a good friend. Like, can't believe you're winning.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Well, I mean, what do you expect? I'm just built better in every way. We spoke about this the other day, that if in a past life we were brothers and I was the more talented one, so...
You were the more talented one, but
Nothing's
you would also be
changed.
the one that died at 28 of some insidious disease.
Gone too young.
I mean, what are you up to now? What is it, 20, 23, 24?
22.
You haven't got long left, mate. You need to start rattling on.
Wait, does
You've
it
only got
happen
6
every
years.
single day? It happens every single lifetime. I just die
Every
at
single
that.
lifetime.
Wow.
Mm.
Well, at least, we've got to make this this podcast famous before then, at least. So then you've got something to aspire to.
Let's make it famous with your first topic. Why not?
Sure. Okay. All right. Putting me on the spot. I like it.
Yeah.
My topic of discussion is games, game developers, and game companies have taken just as many steps forward as they have back in the past 10 years.
Ooh. Okay. That's it's considered. It's interesting. I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
You got me off guard there.
The only reason I say that is because there's certain things in the game industry that have come to shine in the past 10 years, and then some that have been some of the worst decisions and some of the biggest downfalls, in my opinion, of games in the past 10 years. That it only feels like it's happened more, it's getting even worse and / better, but it's got to a point where it's becoming more and more prevalent. And the one major thing I want to talk about is games being unfinished.
Yes.
Before release. Now, if you go back, or at least from what I could remember, when I was around, I want to say about 15, so just on the earlier side of the 10 years ago, most games would be released when they were finished. Yes, sure, they would have a couple bugs, they would have things that needed to be patched and fixed and balanced. However, they would be, on the most part, campaigns would be finished, things would be fleshed out, content would be there. Now you've got games that are releasing in alpha, and in a way, you can kind of blame the colossal giant that is Minecraft for this, but it is just as much as a game developer's fault as it is a consumer's fault. Because
I'm looking at you, Star Citizen.
Yeah. Us as consumers have allowed games to do this, in the sense of releasing in alpha, releasing in beta, and being like, oh, don't worry, we'll add content soon. Now, some games do it well. Like I said, Minecraft did it fantastically, because when they released in alpha, there was content there. There was a basic principle of what it was. There wasn't a huge amount of content, but it was never advertised as having a completely finished game, right? And then over the course of 10 plus years that Minecraft has been around, that game has become the giant that it is. It has never stopped being updated, and it still isn't slowing down, right? Content has been added forever, but it also fits a genre of game that necessarily didn't need the content in the first place. It was a building block game. You know, you could build whatever you want. That was the point of it. But then you move over to games that are now being released in a very, very bare bones basic form that is clearly being pushed out way too early than it should have been, and way too underdeveloped than it should have been. And there's no point. They're charging £40-50 for an unfinished game, and then they never touch it again. And there's bugs in there that have never been fixed, and there's bugs that are game breaking that they never come back to. And there's a lot of game developers that do just push out these games immediately and then just ditch them because they want to get paid quickly.
So I want to, with this, because I have a lot to say on this. I have a lot of feelings about this, and I want to start with the big and work our way to the small.
Yeah.
And in my mind, at least, part of the bigger picture about this is the context in which games are released nowadays. So back in there, when you would have a game release, it would be, you know, like a new Wii game or a PS3 game. The games, I think they were about £30 for a brand new game. And generally speaking, big games would release much more slowly. There were less big games on the yearly calendar. There were less milestones. There were, you know, less Call of Duties. It was generally, every game that came out was kind of pushing the limits of what's possible in a much more significant and milestone type of way.
I agree.
And I think what seems to have happened over the course of the last decade is that these games have started to release into an ever-growing market, an ever-saturated market, and a market where you're not just trying to win over players from other games, you're trying to win over your fan base or your consumer base from your previous model game to the new model game. Where you've got to actually try and convince them to say, leave the last Call of Duty alone and come and play the new one, spend £60 on the new one, then spend another £25 on the season pass, and then spend X amount on other DLC. And then you're trying to constantly drag people up to the newest game. And I think the context of which the release has happened has become so much more chaotic, and there's so much more option for a consumer that it's, you know, people have had to push harder and harder for ever diminishing returns.
Well, if we ignore the Call of Duties, the CODs, the FIFAs and the PES, you know, that block of games, because they come out every year. They're the same boring basic game that comes out with just a rehashed, retextured shader. That is literally all Call of Duty is. It comes out in the exact same format, and if anything, they're just going through the timeline over and over and over again. I mean, they've already released World War 15, 20 years ago, and then they brought out one of the most recent ones, which is another war game. It's the same crap, just rehashed.
It's
right?
It's a lot of the same ideas with, like you say, a new
texture
to put it on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, look, guys, we put it on PS5. It goes from 30 frames to 60. Whoopee! Who cares, right?
No, that's more of a PC thing.
Mate, PC gets 144. All right, don't even.
Speaking of as an aside, I managed to hit 60 FPS on the game the other day.
You've made me so proud.
Thank you.
But if you ignore, because like I saw a post not too long ago that COD is going to take their first year off in years to create another game. Like they're going to spend 2 years making a game instead of one, and everyone's going, "Oh my god, no way!" And it's still going to be the same shit. Okay. But then you take.
I get the sense you don't like Call of Duty. Am I right?
just a smidge, just a little. I just think it's basic. I think it's the same rehashed game over and over and over again.
You are. I do understand that feeling. Yeah, definitely.
But then you move on to the good side of what developers have done, for argument's sake. So you look at games like one game that has recently been taking my attention is No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky came out in 2016, right? And it flopped. It was the most ambitious game of its time, and it completely and utterly flopped.
Yeah. It did.
And yet 6 years later, it has received so many updates, so many patches, and so much content that has been added to the game to create such a good game now, where the literal ratings of the game have gone from like 40 out of 100 to 88 out of 100 over the course of 6 years. And they've literally released a new patch, I think a month ago, not even that, maybe a couple of weeks ago. They're still updating the game, and they have no plans of slowing down, right? That's a game developer / game company that has taken a game that he really loves, and yes, the release was way too early, but has never stopped working on it. He hasn't left it in the dust, right?
Yes, yeah.
That is a perfect example of what should be. That's almost like you're having faith in your consumers to buy early and then giving the product what they deserve, albeit a lot later, but eventually giving it to them, right?
Yeah,
And you've got the same, and then you've got the other side of the spectrum as well, that is like, most recently, as probably many people across the globe now, Elden Ring. A game that has taken years, and I mean literal years to make and craft, and people have been waiting for it for years, right? And it comes out after all that time and devotion and care into that game. It comes out and receives 10 out of 10 from everyone, like literally everyone, right? And there's content there. There's like a whole world for you to explore in that game. And yes, there are tiny bugs, but then they get fixed immediately, right? But then you've got games that aren't finished. You've got games that aren't touched. You've got people that are buying games that are so unfinished that there's nothing there. And a more recent example would probably be New World, if you've ever heard of that game. New World is it was branded as an open MMO, like the next WoW beta, as like all MMORPGs are. It's like, oh, it's going to be the next one that crushes World of Warcraft, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really interesting take on it. It was a third-person view, really high detail graphics, very beautiful game. There was a whole economy system. You could buy your own house in towns. You could take over towns. It had a huge potential, right? And then it blew up. It released, and people were like, oh, we've been developing this game for years. And you're like, awesome, yeah, amazing. It released. There was bugs. There was connection issues. The servers were overcrowded. There was 14 to 20 hour queue times. There was people that had got to the max level in the game, and guess what? There was no content left. In an MMORPG, you're meant to have content at the end of the game, not the start. Like, when you get to end game in most MMOs, that's when the game begins, not when it ends.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whereas New World was the opposite. It was a cool game to grind up to max level, and then there was nothing for you to do. And the things that were there for you to do were so tedious and boring that there was no point in doing it.
So to go back, I think, to what you were saying about games releasing and the kind of ratings and releasing too early, that's a really interesting one, because I think it's something that we have seen change very rapidly from, think back to the Game Boys and your Nintendo DSs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Back to those days where a game could not release until it was ready, because physical cartridges were going to be shipped with this game data. And if it's all wrong, then it's going to be a product recall. It's not even an update, and it would just ruin the entire economics of the game in terms of release. So there was definitely a sense of we can't let this go until it's absolutely bang on.
Finished. Yeah.
Because if we do, we're not going to make any money from the game. And that meant that games were generally more simple. It also meant that games had to be polished and had to be ready. And anything that shipped with the game, any kind of bugs or any kind of unexpected content, was there to stay. And, you know, even now you can go back to old games and find bits that devs never wanted you to find, or bits that had been hidden because they were last-minute decisions, and all these sorts of crazy things that are really interesting to see. But now with games trying to release quickly and also releasing fully digitally as well, you have games where people are saying, yep, we'll make the game, we'll do our best, we'll release it on this date, we'll build the hype, because I think, to be fair, that's a big part of a game's sales is its hype. Yep. And I'm sure there'll be lots of cases out there of games that haven't actually been very good and haven't received very good ratings, but have made shit tons of money because of their hype and because of the amount of people that just bought into it first time and loved it for like a couple of days, and then, you know, then it's sold, isn't it? So I think it's really interesting because now you've got so much more ability to update and ability to change things after the fact that people just want to get it out there. And that also, for me, ties into the fact of the expectation of the customers. You know, we expect so much more from games now that if you released a game that was really simple, part of its review would be like, oh, it's a great game, but we've seen it before and it's a bit simple, so yeah, it's just decent. And I can think of a fair few games that we've played that have a great core idea. They're good fun, but they're just a little bit simple, and the depth to them sometimes feels like it's lacking. Yeah, you know.
And, well, this was like, this is where I want to move on to my second point, is the fact that they've also moved forward in games, in the sense of, like, the argument for them moving backwards a lot of steps is the fact that a lot of game companies are releasing unfinished games. That's the main gist of, in my opinion, why games have moved backwards. But in regards to moving forwards, obviously you've got the astronomical graphic feats that games are releasing now, in the sense of you can literally put on a visor on your face to be in a game.
Yeah, you can.
Right? And whilst that's very early days, it's incredible, right? If anyone has ever had VR or tried it, they could probably attest to the fact that it is surreal. It is insane, especially some things that you can see in VR. It's beautiful. And then you've got games that look visually gorgeous. They are the epitome of someone taking their due diligence in creating a beautiful masterpiece of a game, and it's only getting better at that point. With that, obviously, comes the technical feat of obviously having a console or computer that can run these type of games. But regardless, you've got that aspect of graphics going up, and then gameplay going up. Like you said, the expectations of consumers are also on the rise as games improve. But that's a test to them playing one game, because I could probably put money on it now that most people who have played Elden Ring will now compare their experiences on Elden Ring to a lot of other games, and will never be satisfied for the next 10 years.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there always will be that one game that just like pushes that boundary and does everything right, where every other game then falls short. In an industry where it is so crowded, it's very hard to make a difference. But if you take a look at the whole spectrum of games and how they've improved over 10 years, it is incredible. It is absolutely breathtaking, even to a degree of, like, look at how far, as we mentioned last episode, Rocket League came. compared to their
Yeah.
first version of Rocket League to what it is now. And then you've also got on top of that esports.
Where was it? Aerial propelled rocket grenade cars in flight with motion extra savvy.
Yeah, something like that. And then you go from that to what Rocket League is now, and even pushing it to the extremes of being an esports, where people are making careers on being good at games, which is insane if you think about it. 10, 20 years ago, if you told someone 20 years ago, I make £200,000 on winning a tournament by playing a video game, they'd put you in a mental asylum. More than likely.
Extreme, but okay.
I think they would. If you told someone that 20 years ago, they'd probably put you in a mental asylum. Whereas now, it's commonplace.
I want to visit the point that you made before this about it was about how the expectation of games is getting higher and how games find it harder to create something different. Now, as a side, by the way, do you know how I said that I couldn't run Forza Horizon 5?
Oh God, yeah.
And do you know how I said that I was actually Rocket League was starting to lag?
Yeah.
Do you know what it was?
What?
It was a driver update.
Oh right, okay.
It sorted everything. I didn't realize I forgot to update my drivers when I went to Windows 11, so everything was failing bit by bit.
Right, okay.
Now it runs like a champ. But a great example is Forza Horizon 5, and I'll tell you why. It's because they have, with that game, straight out of the gate, they have released, I think it's something like over 750 cars. Fully. Okay. Now, bearing in mind, each car obviously has its own model. It has its own handling and geometry physics, but every single vehicle has upgradable parts. It has engine swaps. It has upgradable suspension. It has, visually upgradable parts. It has tuning, so you can change everything from final drive ratio all the way to handling setup and weight and power distribution and all these crazy things that every single vehicle has a full array of. And to add 750 vehicles worth of that to one game on release is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And that's just a huge team of incredibly talented people getting paid probably a lot of money to just make content. And I think one of the things that we've seen is people, and I know Battlefield has tried to do this recently as well, a lot of the mainstream games have tried to wow by just creating an amount of content or a size of content that's just incredible. And they've, in some cases, they've really pulled it off. But it's really difficult to keep that up, and to try and go bigger, to try and say a bit that bigger is better, is going to run out at some point. And I think for Battlefield, that's what seems to have sort of happened a bit, is that they've gone bigger, and now they've hit a Battlefield size which is so huge. You've got 128 players in a Battlefield. It's just a little bit too big, and it's just chaos. It's just pure chaos.
And bugs.
And lots of bugs as well.
And lots of bugs, yeah. Well, there's something about, and this I guess would lead to my next point, is there's something about indie games that a lot of indie games do incredibly and exceedingly well. In the sense of, we'll take Binding of Isaac for an example. Are you familiar with Binding of Isaac?
I have. We've played it together.
We have, right. But are you familiar with the game franchise at all? Or is it just the fact that we've played together?
We just played it together.
Okay. So the Binding of Isaac was released in a very, very early version quite a while back. However, it was a finished game. And it was a simple game. It was a roguelike. You go from room to room, clear out enemies, and then you fight a boss, and then you go to the next level, right? Very simple concept, but very, very deep in detail, and very, very deep in content.
Yeah.
And then it only got bigger from there. So they released a updated version, and then they released about 3 or 4 DLCs to go along with it. And every single DLC allowed literally around 1,000 hours if you were a real big player of the Binding of Isaac, probably about 1,000 hours worth of content.
It's a hell of a lot.
And it wasn't expensive either, because it's an indie game, right? And this is where, I guess, my point is that there's an element of quality over quantity. And Battlefield are going the opposite way. They're just going for quantity. They're going for bigger equals better. Louder equals cooler. You know, more explosions equals more happy. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. You've got to have the quality in the small things. And indie games do it very, very well, in my opinion, because they're such simple concepts, but those simple concepts have such a loving creator behind them, and such a passion. They're almost like passion projects, and they just work, and they're not expensive. Whereas these AAA games that are £40-50 and they're the same crap don't work, and yet they get played by the absolute masses because they're just brain dead. You don't have to think too much.
They offer something on a plate and give it to you and say, there it is, take it, and you want it. And to be fair, for some of that stuff, I drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, it definitely works. You know, like as we were talking, Rocket League going free might have been one of the best things Psyonix ever did. And in a sense, Warzone going free, probably one of the best things COD has ever done, right? Because there's probably still people playing Warzone now, right?
Yeah.
And there is definitely a game genre that suits people for that, and fair enough. If you like those games, great. But if you're looking for a game that you're expecting to be incredible off the bat, then go to a game company that actually cares about their games, that actually brings something different to the table. And if it's ambitious, Star Citizen, No Man's Sky, things like that are really ambitious projects, give them some time. Give them a little bit of breathing room. It's not going to be perfect on release, but you can bet 100% that if that game developer cares, over the next couple of years, you'll have one of the best games you'll ever play, without a shadow of a doubt. And that I suppose is the plus side of releasing it early and it not being finished, because you get to see the whole journey of it being released. As long as the updates don't cost £40-50 per update. I'm looking at you, Destiny 2.
This is a conversation, I think, which for me breaks into the world of art in general. And I'm going to call games art for a second.
Which they are.
Yeah, they are. But it's very functional art. But, you know, like anything, like watching a dance show, films to some extent, is some of these games, you know, in order to appreciate them, you have to walk to where they are. You have to buy into them a little bit and say, yeah, I get this is just like a 2D game, or I get this is like a platformer, but I'm going to accept that and move into the game and still see what it has to offer. Games like Terraria, you know, if you are like me, just a basic person that looks at that game, and initially I'm like, oh man, it's a sort of platform kind of game. I don't think I really like it that much. But then we start playing it and I'm like, oh man, there's loads to this. You just have to understand the dimensions in which this game has depth.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the big AAA games try and bring it all to you. They say, no, you don't have to come to us. We'll just bring it all to you, so you don't have to think, you don't have to ponder, you don't have to enjoy the experience. You just get to do. And that, for me, is where some of that, like you say, some of that passion is lost, some of that enjoyment, because you're no longer having to go to a game and enjoy it and actually consider why it's good. Instead, you're just going, oh yeah, I see it's really pretty. And that's all the depth. They become a bit more shallow, I think.
Well, there is a game, and I'll probably leave it on this note because I think we're like halfway through anyway. But there's a game that I fell in love with, and it still holds a very, very, very special place in my heart, is Factorio. And they have adamantly said, and that game is old, like, I think 15 years old. I might be butchering that, but I think it's close to 15 years old, potentially. And I just bought it when it was, I think it was in beta at the time, so it was around £8 I bought it for, and I think it's now 30 on Steam. And they will never put it on sale. ever, because they firmly believe that their game is worth £30. And I couldn't agree more, because it's a game that you jump into and you don't have a fuck what you're doing, right? At all. There's not a single shred. You go in there, it doesn't tell you anything, it doesn't lay it out on a map, it doesn't say, here, we'll feed you your breakfast for you. No, it's like, mate, learn. And if you don't want to learn, quit.
Go and get a different game.
Yeah. But then when you learn, it is one of the most satisfying games I have ever played in my life. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because you'll be scratching your head over and over and over, and you'll be sat there thinking, oh my god, what do I fucking do? And all it is moving a conveyor belt that moves materials from one place to another, and it's so fucking difficult. Why am I struggling? And then you get to that one grace period of like, oh my god, it was that simple, and you think you're a fucking moron. Like, you think I think I remember I figured something out, and I sat there for 5 minutes afterwards, not playing the game. I paused it and was just like, holy shit, how am I so stupid? How am I such an idiot that it was that simple of a solution, and yet it took me about 3 hours to figure it out. Right? But it was like an addicting rush of like, and now I figured it out, let's go and figure something else out. And games like that nowadays genuinely are so looked over, because you have to work for it, you have to figure things out. And there's plenty of games like that. There's like Factorio and Terraria, like you said. Terraria not so much like figuring things out, but it definitely chucks you in the deep end of, if you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what kind of game you're getting yourself in for, then you're not really going to be too sure on what to do. And then there's games like Escape from Tarkov that really like chuck you in the deep end head first, because you go in there with things that cost in-game money, not microtransactions, which is a completely different topic, but things that cost in-game money, and then you die and your character's actually dead, so then you have to spend more money to re-equip him. And it's so there's games like that are, once you get into them, they will probably be your, like, some of the favorite games you'll ever play in your life, and they are fantastic, and yet they are simple in concept. They're like labors of love. And the only, I guess, the closing statement is, whilst we've got some game developers and some game companies that are taking steps back and provoking bad habits within the game company, like releasing unfinished games that are really buggy and then they never come back, releasing plenty of microtransactions in a game that really doesn't need them, and then creating a game that is so overwhelmingly hyped for it to only be shut down and then to not exceed the expectations of consumers, which is more of a consumer's problem, to going to the graphical feats that we've got, the labor of love games that we've received, and the absolute years and years of content that we have been blessed with on this past 10, 20 years, that game developers are doing absolute wonders, providing us, and providing thousands of hours of entertainment, where most people that I know don't even watch TV or anything anymore. They just play games.
Yeah, they just take up so much time, because there is that much content to get through.
You just lose yourself in there, and it is such a breakaway to explore a new world. So, not really even much of a debate. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just saying. I'm just kind of saying. Yeah, like I know you already kind of agree, but it is a case of like, yeah, we've taken a couple of steps back, but it's never going to overshadow the amazing feats that have happened in the past 10 years for gaming. And like I said, it only goes up from here.
The last thing I do have to say is about VR. Very, very quick.
Yeah.
Have you ever played Minecraft in VR?
Yeah.
You don't realize that those blocks are 1 meter by 1 meter until you get into VR, and you're like, shit, these blocks are massive.
And I'm tiny.
And you're tiny. And then you realize, you say, wait a second, I can jump 1 block at a time. I can just casually jump 1 meter straight up.
Yeah.
Every time.
And I think it's even worse when you go up onto a cliff and actually look down on that cliff and realize,
Yeah.
oh my god. That's one of the very few games that genuinely does give me that like fear of heights stimulation. Because you
33
are.
blocks up is 100 feet.
That's what I'm saying. You are 100
No.
feet up.
No, sorry, am I lying? No, I'm not lying. Yeah,
100,
33
100 blocks up is 100 meters.
Yeah,
There you
so
go, simple.
33 blocks is 100 feet. Yeah, honestly, it's mad.
It is nuts. And that just pays a testament to how good Minecraft is.
What a great
So
concept.
I changed my debate. Minecraft best game ever. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, sure, whatever. Agree. Fine.
Thank you. 3-1. Easy.
Thank you, Notch.
Thank you, Notch. Thank you, Jeb. Thank you, Mojang.
And the creeper was a bug. So there you go.
Creeper was a bug that stayed. There we go. Perfect.
So my topic of debate, again, I've kind of failed, like, you know, it's not really a debate, but it's just I want to know which one you prefer.
Okay. Sure.
I know which one you'd think. So, similar in a way to yours, but at the same time entirely and completely different.
Oh,
Useless
so it's
to say that.
not the same at all. Nice one, Joel.
It has, there are elements.
Yeah.
You know, looking back to the future.
But the film?
No, I just said the wrong thing. Let me start again. I just had a brain fart.
Looking back to the future. Nice. Uh-huh.
Would it be better to... No, you can't. I've got to get through this. This is the crucial bit.
Uh-huh. I'm adamantly listening. I'm ready.
Literally getting nervous.
Uh-huh.
Is it better to be able to change the past or know the future?
Oh, wait, on a personal standpoint or like a beauty pageant, I want to win the contest, like I just want world peace, so I would make sure that whatever happened in the past would never happen again. Well, that type of shit.
Well, I guess in any way, but when I say be able to change the past, I mean be able to have effect over the past. Or would you prefer to know what is going to happen in the future? Let's just say, let's keep it on a mostly personal level for now.
Okay.
To try and mitigate from the, craziness.
The only reason I ask is because my personal side is completely different to the world kind of side. If I was doing it in favor of the world and in favor of humanity, my answer would be entirely different, I think.
So start with the personal.
Well, I think in the I wouldn't want to go into the past because it's done. Who cares, right?
Okay.
Well, actually, I would do the same thing either way, and this will probably show my true colors. Because in the past, I don't like the idea of meddling with the past because it could form a ripple effect that affects your life now, that you have no control over. Whereas if you see into the future, you can predict something that's going to happen and change it, and then continue living your life from then on.
That's very true. That's very true.
So, but what I would do would still be the same. I would personally look into the future.
Okay.
Find out which cryptocurrency is going to blow up. Invest an absolute dog ton into it, and then be rich.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, there's always the lottery numbers, although to be fair, probably finding those lottery numbers would be hard. But I guess you could look at where the winner was and try and work it out from there.
Well, you'd probably make more money off crypto than you would lottery.
You're probably right, to be fair. Maybe it'd be like
I would look at what crypto would increase like 1,000% next year, right? And it would be a really low point, and I would invest my entire life savings into that one crypto, and just wait until I was rich.
Whoa, you put your entire life savings into Cardano Coin? Whoa,
Cardano, sponsor us, please.
I've actually lost money on Cardano. I bought into Cardano, and my investment was worth £45 when I bought in. Now we're currently at about £19.
Well, to be fair, I think a lot of cryptos are going down at the moment because of what's happening.
That's very true. That is very true. It's a bit of
plus,
tumultuous
you don't invest into crypto to to make an immediate profit. You invest into crypto to make profit in the long run.
It's very true.
Like my friend, I've got a friend who did invest in Cardano, like early, and I think he put, I think he only put like 1,000 or something in there. I'm not too sure, but now it's worth. Oh no, I think he put in like £100, and now it's worth like $4,000 or something stupid like that.
It's not bad going at all.
But he doesn't. He's not going to touch it. He's adamantly says like I don't plan to touch it. I expect Cardano to go up to like £10 each or something like that. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah, leave it in there and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting what you said though, because the one thing that comes to my mind about knowing the future, and Doctor Who did an episode on this. In fact,
learn when I'm going to die.
Is that can you avoid it or can you not? So the problem with the future is there is a kind of it's an unknown whether, okay, I know that next week I can see myself I get hit by a car. Shame to start with. But
shame, awful.
Yeah, but also how do I avoid it? Because if I'm looking into the future and I think, oh, I got hit by a car, and then obviously if you try to avoid getting hit by a car and then do get hit by a car because of it, and that was how that happened, it's like, is that the future as it currently stands,
itself. Or
is that the future? Can I change that? I wouldn't know. That's the problem. I wouldn't know how to work that.
I'm sat here giggling to myself because if you could see into the future, you'd know if you were going to have a shit week or not. Just look, it's like, oh god, this week's going to be dog shit. Got hit by a car on Friday. Cat scratched my eyes out on Saturday. Got debt on Sunday. God damn it.
The cats that you don't have.
The cats that you don't have are going to scratch your eyes out on Saturday.
You're going to buy a cat
sat there with
on
a really
Friday.
sad face, like, oh, what's wrong, honey? Oh, I'm going to have a shit week next week. It's like, sorry, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, you're going to get hit by a car on Friday.
Can you imagine? Well, you could plan. You could be like, listen, okay, I'm going to have an unplanned accident on Wednesday. Could you make sure that you're off work for about 4 o'clock? Take me to hospital. Would that be okay?
Yeah. Sorry, boys, I've got to cancel D&D next week. Oh, really? Why? I'm going to be hit by a car on Saturday. Sorry, what?
Because it makes me think, how would you affect the world to change your future? Because ultimately, if you were to look at one eventuality of the future now, the likelihood of that one eventuality coming true versus the billions of other eventualities is actually ridiculously slim.
Yeah, but you're looking into the future is permanent though, right?
Oh, that's a big conversation.
The timeline of past to future is like permanent. It's almost like the fucking string theory question. It's like is life predetermined? Okay.
We are men of science.
So if you're looking along the line of future and you could change it, theoretically, if you could change it, then yeah. But then what would be the point in looking into the future? Because then you'd be changing the future.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Whereas if it was stagnant, you wouldn't have a choice. Now, really messed up question is what would you do if you could look into the future and you think, okay, I'm going to look 60 years forward, and then it was just darkness?
Yeah, you see, I'd have questions because I'd be like, I don't know whether that's just myself that's cocked it, or whether it was the actual world, the entire world just went bye-bye, a nuclear war.
Yeah, but would you, I guess
planet.
The further point to that question is like, would you look back then, like every single year until you could see and try and figure it out? Or would you be like, oh, shit.
I think if you were able to look into the future, you'd have to just go full ham, wouldn't you? You'd just have to go... You just go full, and you'd be like, right, I'm going to look at everything at all times, everywhere, and I'm going to live it through and see what happens.
I don't think I would. I'd be terrified, I think. I think I'd figure out how to get rich. I'd figure out how to get rich and then never touch it again.
You'd be like Leonardo DiCaprio at the end of Inception. You just walk away from the spinning top. You're like, I don't need to know. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I just want to live my life as it is. Let me get rich real quick. Because like, imagine if like, say for example, us, we're like, oh, do I become a famous actor? And you look 20 years in the future and you fucking sat at, I don't know, Tesco's packing things in a bag. You know?
You sat in a
Would you not just
one-bedroom
like
studio flat eating a pizza.
Yeah, exactly. Like nothing's happened within 20 years. And it's almost like, oh, well, what's the point in carrying on for 10 years? You know? That's why I wouldn't want to like delve too deeply into that. I'd figure out a way to basically grasp what I wanted, or if like say get into I'd join like UFC, right?
Okay.
And I'd play out what quick if I could do it like instantaneous, I'd get into the ring with someone, and as they're throwing a punch, quickly look into the future to see where he throws a punch and dodge accordingly and knock him out.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
be like literally a
Yeah.
modern day superhero being able to see like 10 seconds before it happens.
That
Like,
see, well,
I'd be like
if you
Robert
could see
Downey
into the
Jr. in
future,
Sherlock. Discombobulated.
yeah, literally. If you could look into the future, you would be able to see anything from the next second all the way to 100, 200, 300,000 years.
When you were doing that, how much time would pass in your current life?
Let's say that time runs at the same pace. That's trippy. So time runs at the same
Okay,
pace.
so-
So if you know,
If you saw, I was going to say, if you saw 1 second into the future, you'd be seeing 1 second into the present. But if you saw, okay, wait, but if 1 second passes while you're looking 1 second, so if you look 10 seconds into the future, it would be so trippy because you'd come out and you'd be 10 seconds in front anyway.
no, because let's say if you looked 10 seconds into the future, imagine you started a timer for 10 seconds, but
Yeah.
your future timer would be constantly 10 seconds ahead.
That's what I mean. Like okay, we're delving a bit, trying to figure out the functionality here. So if I looked 10 seconds into the future, right, and looked in that future for 10 more seconds, right, by the time I'd come back to the present, I'd be 10 seconds in. I'd start where I looked.
Yes, you would.
That would be so freaky. You'd be like, bloody, that's so Raven, just like staring off into the distance and then coming back to and being like, what happened?
And then watching it play out deja vu exactly as it did.
But bit of a weird like Inception question. What if you looked into the future for so long that you didn't realize that you were looking into the future anymore and you got stuck into that future?
Oh,
How do we know we're not looking into the future now in a different body?
It's all just a simulation.
It's all just a simulation. You know, seagulls, cameras.
Do you know what BIRD stands for? Government drone.
Government. It's the government drone. Your family, your mom, your dad, cameras, not real. All right?
Yeah.
Friends, animals, cameras, not real. You ever tried to punch your mom? You can't. Okay? Hand goes straight through it.
Camera, not real.
Not real. Swear to God.
Is this what you've picked up from your Australian Tinfoil Hat Society?
Yeah. Cameras, not real. Yeah, but I swear to God, mate, you walk down the street, everyone's staring at you. Don't know
They
why.
don't stare at me. Do they stare at you?
Yeah, maybe it's a tinfoil hat, but like, everyone just keeps looking over.
I know what it is. It's the lack
Cameras.
of beard.
All right, you didn't have to go there, did you? That's just way too personal. Okay. Yes, I get it. I look like a prepubescent 14-year-old without a beard. All right. You know what's funny though? When I got it shaved on set, completely off tangent here. Got it shaved on set, walked out, and there's this guy, lovely guy, just gives me a smile. Goes, "Oh, it looks good." I was like, "I want to punch you so bad, but you were so nice. It doesn't look good."
Wait, did you shave it yourself?
No, they shaved it for me.
I want to know, how did they, as on a complete tangent, how did they shave it? I want to look into the past for a second. How do they shave it? Because
with a razor.
whenever I try and shave my beard, if it's ever so slightly long, it's always very painful.
No, they had like I think it's called a one blade. Was that what it's called? It was like an electric green razor, basically. And they shaved it off that way, and it wasn't painful at all. And then when there was parts they couldn't get, they got a clipper, and did it that way. And then they got, the two like circular blades that kind of like rotate into themselves that you get the stubble with.
Yes.
They got me one of them, and I finished
Oh,
it
so it was
off.
a completely dry shave.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So you
Didn't
should
expect that.
you should shave your beard dry first anyway, in my opinion. If you're trying
Yeah.
to shave like a big bushy beard wet, nah, no, don't have it. Get some clippers, grade 0, shave it all off then, and then get a straight razor and shave it off.
Yeah.
That's what you should do.
Straight
Tips for young
razors are
men.
great.
Yep. But
Shave
looking
the
back
first
into
stubble
the future, right?
off. Yay.
Looking back into the future, what would you, if you did see something that you wish you didn't, would you try and change it?
Well, this is my other question was going to be, what if looking into the future, what if the future you saw was very dependent on your current mood? so that, because at the end of the day, the way you feel is going to dictate how you go. And, there's always that thing of if you just stand up, you tell yourself you're okay, and you make it happen for yourself. You create good opportunities, or you could stay at home wallowing in self-pity forever and never achieve anything.
So you basically, that's not looking into the future, that's just real life, Joel.
Don't remind me.
You telling me that the future that we look into is bipolar?
Well, no, I'm just saying that if you're really sad and you look into the future, and if you continue to be sad, you just see yourself again, like you're walking down the street, it's raining, you're homeless, it's all gone wrong. And then you find yourself one day really happy and
But would you change
elated
it, though?
and hopeful.
So like I said, if you looked into the future 20 years, right, and you were in a place where you weren't happy, would you try your best to change it? Even though you think that maybe there's no chance of it changing because it's the future?
I think I
Or
would.
would you just wallow in self-pity?
I think I would try and change it, but I think it would be hard because it would be a bit like constantly recommitting to make you, to be happy, to be positive. And it would be really hard not to just order infinite gluten-free pizzas from that great fast food place near me and just live in that reality. But I think I would try and change it because I think I'd be like, do you know what? I believe I can do something different to that. And the thing that I would struggle with is the intervals between when I check the future to see if I changed it or not.
Yeah.
I'd be like, would it be a week? Would I leave it a day? Would it be hours? I think that would be really hard.
If you just thing is though, I think I'd go insane because I'd be checking it. Like, imagine if you couldn't sleep, right? Which is very common. Yeah. You're just lying there in bed and you think, what if I just take a little peek into 5 years' time? Just a little, 10-second peek, and then the 10-second peek turns into an hour-long peek, and you're basically just living a second life. Instead of dreaming, you're just living a second life.
See,
10 years ahead.
Your brain went into 5 years' time. I was thinking you just look forward to see when you fell asleep.
That's
when am I going to fall asleep?
Oh, then okay, cool, perfect.
Right.
Yeah, but what? Okay, wait. Even more trippy. What if you looked into the future when you were asleep? Would you see your dream, or would you see yourself sleeping? Right.
Do you mean if you had future dreams?
Huh? No. If you say what you just said, it's I want to look forward to see when I'm sleeping. Wouldn't you just go into a dream?
Well, that depends whether it puts itself into a third-party perspective or if it's a first-person.
It would definitely be first person, right?
I mean, maybe, but at the same, let's say it is. I guess you would just see. I don't know.
A question for another day. But in terms of looking into the future, that's what we're doing, Joel. Is we're looking into the future to try and make ourselves successful, right?
Yeah, we are. We're looking into the future to make a podcast that's going to work.
That is going to work. And I think this is the point where we take our big deep dive into promotion, into getting the name out there. And I think there's a couple of things we want to say first, right, Joel?
Hell yeah. So let me kick off with the first one, right? First of all, if you are one of the listeners that has joined us in this first 10 episodes of Speech Waffle, a huge thank you.
Yeah,
Your
ginormous
listening
thank you.
time is greatly appreciated,
Yeah.
and we're just glad that you're still here.
If
For
you
want of
are.
a better word.
If you've left before episode 10, get lost, losers.
Losers. But yeah,
But
definitely.
as well, the people that have listened up through 1 through 10, I know there's a couple people across the globe that have listened to almost every single episode. It is a massive thank you, as we've said, but it has been also a big motivation for us, because our initial goal for 10 episodes was to get 50 downloads or 50 listens, and we've smashed that goal almost out the water, beyond our expectations. And it's thank you to all of you guys that have been listening, and hopefully you have all enjoyed, for us to keep going.
Hell yeah. So this is going to be our kind of release, if you will. We've had the 10 episodes, what we call soft release, and then we're going to try a full release now, where we're going to really start ramping things up and to start creating content with the level of consistency that we want. So moving forwards, you will see things on our Instagram at Speech Waffle. You will also see a Speech Waffle Reddit pop up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to set that up so you can give us some feedback on the show, of things you like or things you don't like that you can tell us to. And you're going to see a few things popping up like that, that we're going to try and push and see where they go. Yeah,
exactly. And don't get me wrong, I think we're both terrified of pushing it out into the big wide world, but I think it is time. We've got 10 hours, give or take, of content for people to listen to. We will go back, we plan to go back and quickly remaster some of the earlier episodes. So if they disappear for a day, they'll be back very, very shortly.
And if you're listening to this in the future, you'll have never known what they were before.
You would have never known. So, sucks to be you guys, I suppose. You never know what we used to be like.
How terrible we were. No, jokes.
No, we were better than we are now, actually.
Fantastic.
But yeah, I think we just wanted to, at the end of this episode, just again say a massive thank you to everyone that has listened, and a massive welcome, I suppose, to everyone that is joining us now. And hope that you stick around. Hope that you enjoy for the next, 100 to 200 episodes, to maybe even longer. We plan to do this for a very long time. I mean, until I get sick of Joel.
He hates me more every day, but as we discussed, it's a good hate.
It's an okay hate. It's getting worse. But yeah, we plan to do this for the foreseeable future, and hopefully make a living or a career. And with your guys' help and everyone involved, it will hopefully get there. Fingers crossed.
And we hope to see you in episode 11.
Hope to see you in episode 11.